everyone, we're Nick
and Rachel.
If you're new here and you haven't been following our adventures up to now, you'll typically find us vlogging our travels throughout the world. But today's video is going to be a little bit different. And the reason for that is because with each new country that we've gone to, we've noticed that things operate a little bit differently compared to what we're used to in the UK and Canada.
The reason that we have this YouTube channel is to share our travel experiences in the hopes of inspiring others to travel more. With that, we want to share some tips and tricks that we've picked up along the way in each of the countries that we've visited, so that if you want to go to the same places, you'll be armed with some information that will help you in planning your trip and navigating around a little bit easier once you're there.
Today's video is going to focus on traveling through Belize. If you've been watching our videos, you'll know that we visited San Ignacio and Caulker during our time there. And while a number of these pointers are going to be specifically about those places, the rest of them will be about the country as a whole.
We hope you find these useful. When you enter Belize, you're going to need to fill out a passenger declaration form. The reason that we bring this up is because it's kind of a two-part form and you need to hold on to the bottom part of it and fill that out before you exit the country, and you will give it to immigration before you leave the country. Another thing that's a little bit different about heading into Belize is a lot of countries have a conservation fee and you pay it upon entry. However, Belize is a little bit different. You tend to pay all of their fees when you leave the country. So if you're leaving by land, meaning that you probably be going to either Mexico or Guatemala, it is $40 in cash to leave the country. However, if you're traveling by air, then it is most likely that your fees will be tied into your airport taxes, so you'll have already paid it. There is a lot of conflicting information online, and it says that you could be paying anywhere from $35 to $75 per person in cash or maybe credit card to leave the country by air, but that was not our experience. We are quite certain in advising you that if you're traveling by air, all of these fees will most likely be rolled into your ticket.
According to the Belizean government website, water throughout the country is potable. However, just as a general rule, it is a good idea to ask your accommodation as to whether it is a good idea to drink tap water. The good news though is that for the most part, bottled water is available and is generally inexpensive. Alternatively, like in Guatemala and other countries that we've been to, it is also possible that your accommodation may even provide a water dispenser so that you can refill your bottles at your leisure. So again, just check in with your accommodation and make sure that you're doing the right thing, because obviously we wouldn't want anything nasty to happen to you.
The food in Belize is absolutely delicious, but the style of food can vary depending on where you are in the country. If you're closer to Guatemala and Mexico, the food will more closely resemble what they eat there, whereas if you're closer to the Caribbean Sea, then you will probably see more Caribbean style food. We personally really enjoyed fry jacks while we were there. We also really liked Belizean style jerk food because they would make it with fish, chicken, vegetables. So if you're vegetarian, it's no problem, as well as coconut curries. But there are just so many different food options for you to try while you're there. So you can't really go wrong.
Belize has its own version of the dollar, which runs at its own exchange rate. Therefore, if you go to any restaurant and you see dollar signs, do not be confused. That is actually all in Belizean dollars, not Canadian, US, or anything else. There may be certain places where some of the prices may be in USD, but that will be, generally speaking, for tour operators or transportation, and it will be clearly marked that that is US dollars over Belizean. In terms of obtaining cash, then there are a number of different ATM options that are available to you, but it is quite likely that most of them will charge you additional money. However, we got very lucky in that we found Atlantic Bank, and Atlantic Bank do not charge any additional withdrawal fees, irrespective of the type of card that you use. So therefore, since there isn't really any real consistency between being able to use credit card or cash, it is 100% worth making sure that you do have some Belizean cash on you at all times. So therefore, we do sincerely suggest that if you are going to need to take any money out, that you go to Atlantic Bank for that.
Uber and other rideshare apps don't really appear to be common or popular or even available at all in Belize. So in terms of personal transportation within cities, you're likely going to have to rely on negotiating with taxis or tuk-tuks. However, for intercity travel, then there are shuttle buses. We took a shuttle bus from Flores in Guatemala to San Ignacio, Belize, and then again San Ignacio to Belize City, where we were finally able to catch a ferry on to Caulker. So shuttle buses were great. They were reliable, safe, pretty comfortable, and quite affordable as well. As for booking shuttle buses, it's good to do so in person because it would be cheaper than booking online. We were able to book ours directly through our accommodation for a great price, although I'm sure that within towns there are also probably tour operators that will book shuttle buses for you as well, because they're often advertising that they do offer that service too. But show up in person and you'll get the best price.
The same thing also applies when it comes to booking any tours or major tourist excursions. Booking in person always trumps booking online, and the reason for this is because the likes of Viator and TripAdvisor will charge additional fees on top of what the base price would be. Whereas generally speaking, in person, they will not provide any additional surcharges for that service. And so as a result, we basically ended up going through our accommodation for most things. So that didn't just include tours, but it also included all transfers as well between San Ignacio to Belize and then Belize onto Caulker. And on top of that, our snorkeling trips, ATM Caves, all of that kind of stuff was all booked in person when we arrived. So while this does generally go against how we like to plan, we do like to get most stuff done a little bit in advance. And we know that the idea of just rocking up with no plans may sound like some people's idea of hell. We do urge you to actually do this as a cost-saving measure.
While in San Ignacio, Belize, it is 100% worth it to do the ATM Caves tour. I have never experienced caves like this. It was a very unique experience, but there are certain things that you should just know about it, because when I got the packing list, I didn't understand why I needed a completely separate set of dry clothes for the end of the tour. I thought, well, I'm going to wear my dry clothes with my bathing suit underneath. And when we need to go in the water, I'll just take off my dry clothes, swim, and then I have the clothes for afterwards. However, just to get to the caves, you need to hike through the jungle, which includes going through rivers where the water can be chest deep. And for the amount of time you're hiking, it's about 45 minutes. It's not appropriate to just wear your bikini, and there's not really an opportunity to change in and out of your swimming suit and clothes, which would kind of be annoying. Same goes for when you get to the cave. It's just such a mix of having to swim in deep water and then walk through ankle deep water or boulder over rocks. You don't have time to be changing. So you basically need to go in with some clothes that you're just happy to get wet. Because again, it's not appropriate to be doing it all in your bikini or bathing suit. You do want to have at least a t-shirt and shorts type of clothes on. What would really be ideal is if you could just wear a dry suit or a wetsuit. That would take care of it all. So, needless to say, wear clothes that you can get wet, and then also bring yourself a dry set of clothes at the end. The other thing you need to know about the cave tour is that you cannot bring cameras or phones, because unfortunately a few years ago, a tourist dropped their phone, I believe, onto a ruin, and it actually broke the ruin. So they have now prohibited phones and cameras to prevent further damage. And then the last thing that you need to be aware of is that you need to wear a pair of socks with whatever water shoes you're going to be bringing, because there's a certain point where you need to take off your shoes in order to protect all the ruins. And they just ask you to only wear socks in the cave at that point. And I don't recommend changing into the socks at that point because your feet will already be wet and you don't want to have to like put dry socks on wet feet. And once you start walking, the socks are already going to get wet. So you might as well just wear socks from the beginning and have them wet through the entire duration of the tour.
One of the other major draws to Belize is Caulker and the Caribbean islands that are still technically part of Belize. In order to get out to those, then there is a water taxi or ferry service that will take you from Belize City Port and take you all the way there. And I think it was maybe a 50-minute journey each way. So yeah, it's really not that far. And it's actually quite affordable. However, one of the things that we didn't actually realize when we came to buy our tickets is that while there is definitely a decent price for a single ticket, there is also a return ticket. We didn't have specific dates planned for a return at the time. And we were told that that was okay, because actually when it comes to the return ticket, then it turns out that that is an open return, which can be valid for up to 3 months after you initially depart. So therefore, if you are planning on going out and back, which will probably be the case for the majority of you, then this could be a really effective cost-saving measure.
Caulker is a Caribbean island paradise. However, keep in mind that this is an island that doesn't have any cars on it. Yes, there's golf carts and kind of motorcycles and bicycles, but because of that, there aren't really any paved roads. The roads are all made of sand, but then when it rains, it kind of turns to more like a clay-like substance. So basically, just be prepared that your clothes are going to get sandy, your shoes are going to get sandy, and depending on your accommodation, you might be dragging quite a bit of sand into your accommodation as well.
One of the most awesome things that Belize is home to is one of the largest barrier reefs in the entire world. It's only second to the Great Barrier Reef in Australia and is 100% worth a snorkel or a dive if you are so inclined. However, and this is something that we didn't quite realize when we actually first decided to do this, is that there are a number of different stops, and one of them is one where you get to encounter quite a lot of nurse sharks and a lot of other marine life, all in abundance. But the reason why it is so abundant is because actually a lot of the tour operators decide to feed the fish. Now, I'm not sure how many of you are aware, but actually feeding the fish in that kind of manner really disrupts the ecosystem. It screws with migratory patterns that would be naturally occurring without human activity. And so by making the likes of sharks and fish and things like that dependent on humans, it really is detrimental to the nature in that area. So therefore, if you can avoid it, please do avoid going through companies that feed the fish during their tours. We were very lucky in that we actually ended up going through a company called Reef Friendly Tours, and they were among the very few, if not the only one, that doesn't feed the fish as part of the excursion. And thankfully, the quality of the snorkeling and everything that you get to enjoy does not suffer for it in any way, and you don't even pay any extra compared to any of the other tour operators. So therefore, if you are a little bit more ecologically conscious, then just keep that in mind.
And that's our list for Belize. We hope that these tips and tricks have been helpful and that you can apply them to your future travels. However, we do understand that this is not necessarily a complete list, so if you have any further questions or you have suggestions, then please leave them in the comment section below.
Until next time though, take care.
And keep smiling.